Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cloud Native Coffee Hour. It has been a long time since we streamed. I apologize. We've all been very busy, lots of life stuff, lots of work stuff, and we just unfortunately have not had the time to sit down with you guys. But we are back, the trio, Sam Delamarter, Dan McCracken's forehead, and me. When I was introducing you, you were leaning forward. So, Dan McCracken, Sam Delamarter, and me, your host, Dan Makita, here for the Cloud Native Coffee Hour. And we have a very fun topic today. We actually prepared a little bit for this one. You know, normally we sit down, we have an idea, and we just kind of go with it. This time we actually were like, you know what? We've done a lot of stuff on this, and we want to present on it. So today's topic is Kubernetes disaster recovery.
Hello, Jablon. Welcome to the stream. Great to meet you. We're real people, not just YouTube people. What are we going to talk about today, guys?
Right, we are talking about Kubernetes disaster recovery today, which has been something that we've been adding to our our Raspberry Pi cluster has just gone from, a science experiment to just full-blown like production grade. It's been great. But we recently added backups for a lot of things, and we're going to present on that for everybody today. So I guess let's just jump into it because we do have a hard stop at 5 today. So let's swap over to the screen share here, and let's talk about a couple of things. So when it comes to Kubernetes, and guys, please jump in on any of this that you feel like I might have missed. But the state of Kubernetes is controlled by a very efficient data store called ETCD. And when you install Kubernetes, you also install ETCD, and there's usually different ways to go about configuring it. You can configure it on the same node as your master nodes. You can have separate nodes for ETCD in particular. Ideally, you usually have it in a 3-node configuration for high availability, because that is the brain of Kubernetes. So if you back up that data store somewhere, you can restore it. And ETCD actually comes with that functionality built right in, and I feel like a lot of people don't know this. It's just a part of ETCD. You can set it up to back up to various things by default, and that's built in. That said, we use K3s for our cluster, and K3s actually kind of tapped in to those settings that ETCD provides to make it just super easy. When you create the cluster, you can say, hey, back up ETCD to here. With standard Kubernetes, those options don't pass through, so you would need to set up ETCD kind of separately if you're setting up just like open source Kubernetes. Okay, so what Sam's got up on the screen here is the options that we added to our K3s startup script. So you guys have seen this before in previous streams or on our YouTube videos. K3s, very easy to start up. In general, you really only have to do that one-liner at the top. You can just do the curl with whether you want to start the server or the client. It's that easy. Obviously, if you want to start going beyond just a demo, you have to add some arguments. So you can see this is our startup script. We tell it exactly what version we want of Kubernetes because we want to lock that in and control it. This particular one is for a master node, because with K3s by default, it puts ETCD on the same node as a master. So you can see we're saying curl the script, install this version of Kubernetes, and start the server. It's either client or server. We're calling server here. This is a secondary master node, so we actually pass in the location of the original node. You pass in the token, so that way they can talk to each other. The TLS SAN is so that the default Kubernetes can know who it is, basically. So when you hook it up to like your CNAME out in whatever cloud host that you have, when you go through, it puts your URL into the header of your HTTP request, and then that gets read in by whatever is receiving it. So if your Kubernetes cluster API server matches what the CNAME is that's passing in, that's why we have TLS-SAN there. I can't remember why we do this right kube config mode 644. Was that for Rancher? Oh, okay. So if you guys can't hear them, it was for to do Rancher auth. We needed to set that setting in order for Rancher to be able to communicate to it. And finally, we get to the etcd stuff that we're here to talk about. Like I said, these settings get passed through. Hey, VR Linux is here. Hey, buddy. It's been a long time. We're having production issues today. Oh, boy. I haven't talked to Grizz in a while. He's been busy. We need to fix your guys' sound. No secrets. Nope, no secrets leaked live yet. We actually, if you can see, we starred them out. All right. So, anyways, talking about the etcd configs here. Like I said, these get passed through. This is a convenience thing added to K3s. You can do the same thing with open source etcd, but you'd have to actually use the etcd CLI to set it up. And then that's fine. But here, it's just super convenient. Hey, create a node, a Kubernetes node, and back up etcd to this location. So you can see we're passing in, hey, we're going to use S3 bucket for etcd. Here's the bucket's name. Here's the region it's in. Here's the access key, the secret, and the cron schedule for how we want to back it up. So anyways, it just runs on a cron schedule, and this just backs up on a 12-hour rolling basis. VR, Jablon, and Grizz, I appreciate all of you. Okay. Did you guys want to add anything about the etcd stuff?
We haven't actually restored from it, but it seems really good. If you look at the S3 bucket, which I could have pulled up when we had that downtime, but I didn't. It's taking snapshots and it's sending it to S3, so seems good.
Yeah, I would love to test the restore, and I love that I forgot that we were even doing it. Because it was that low friction to get started. So it's like, it's just one of those things where you should just be doing it. But the restoration, that feels like a great stream.
Yeah.
That we should probably try, because we need to do that.
Yeah, maybe next week we'd try that.
Yeah. I think about, we talked about this before. We've done, you've done a lot recently on the disaster recoveries of some of our clients. And it's been grueling, right? Their approach is to just reinstall everything from scratch rather than really doing a restore, right?
That has been the approach prior to me. Yes. So we're changing that, because turns out you can cheat and just make it as easy as possible, because cheating means you're winning in restoring from a disaster fast. So no, it's good. It's been a fun project. So,
but with just etcd has all your configs, it has all your secrets, it has all of the deployment YAMLs, it has everything. So if you just restore etcd, the scheduler is going to be like, oh hey, I'm supposed to have this deployment out there, but it's not out there yet, and it'll just restore it. And it'll come up with the same thing's kind of true of secrets. If you have a Vault integration and you're in a DR environment that can't access your Vault server, well, if you just restore etcd, it's going to restore all the secrets as they were. So they should be correct unless they're, generated or they expire or whatever. But
it's all things equal. I agree. Like these, and we were gonna try this. It was like a month or two ago, and we got way distracted with something. Still loved it. We could still do that. We still should do that. We'll start here. But
Interesting.
Is-
VR said, are the
is
snapshots encrypted?
Yeah,
I don't know.
dealt with ransomware that corrupted all non-encrypted backups. That's a yikes,
Yeah.
bro.
I don't think that we set that up. I think that was something we were looking at, and we were like, yeah, we should do that, but it's not as easy as just, here's the bucket, there you go. But I don't think it was
Sweet.
that much more complicated, so we should do that.
All right, so part 2 is persistent volumes, right? So you just restored the state of your cluster, and all your apps are getting redeployed, but the data that those apps require is gone, right? Because etcd only maintains the state of your cluster. So what's the other half of the story? The other half is your PVs, and we'll talk about some vendor options out there to do this. And you know what? What we're going to show you might be considered a vendor option. We use Rancher on our little cluster here, and Rancher has a product called Longhorn. You can kind of compare Longhorn to something like Rook, if you're familiar with that one. But we just went with Longhorn because it was, just available. It was there, and we've spent a lot of time on Rook, and we're like, let's try something else. So we installed Longhorn. I like it a lot. Honestly, I feel like Rook is very complicated. It's very powerful, but very complicated. And Longhorn, it doesn't feel as powerful, but it's a lot simpler. It was just super simple to get set up and running. We're using AWS.
Yeah. Self-hosted S3. Self-hosted S3 is actually really easy with Rook. Rook had a little bit of overhead to it, had a learning curve. But so did this, to be fair. Like, we had to figure out where to tune it, where to click the buttons.
Right.
But it's way more clicky approachable and solvable than when we approached Rook a couple years ago.
Yeah, and we kind of just liked that it was a Rancher product that fit in with the dashboard, and it's got this already. And
Yeah,
I feel like
obviously
when I was in
it's
Rook,
way easier.
When I was in Rookland, I felt like it was designed from a storage expert's perspective.
Yeah.
And when I used Longhorn, I felt like it was designed more from a cloud admin's perspective, if that makes sense. Yeah. So yes, Rook honestly was very easy. It auto-discovered any empty volumes and just set them up as OSDs or whatever. And it was great. And we used Rook Ceph and Ceph volumes, and we were able to set up S3 buckets. Super easy. Yes, it is very nice. Longhorn was not as simple. It didn't auto-discover things. You had to kind of tell it what volumes to use, and we did have to make a few changes to make it work. But once it was up and running, I felt like the dashboard and the way they approached how you manage it, I guess, just felt a little bit more approachable in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the product as opposed to a bolt-on. Right, Rook setup was Helm install Rook, and then install Ceph clusters. It wasn't that bad. This is even easier than that. It just comes with it, and it feels like a first-class citizen of things as an administrator you should click on and you should care about, and that's really good. That's really good.
So, Sam, you've been in here a lot. We've started managing our website within this cluster. So we have this website. We're going to do a stream on this at some point in the future.
Nice.
Sam, you want to just talk about kind of how we're using the cluster for the website real quick?
I'm still not 100% sure how these correlate. The volume of Longhorn, so there's a CRD from Longhorn that's a volume. Those are what kind of tie everything together from just a vanilla Kubernetes standpoint. So you have your persistent volumes and your persistent volume claims, right? So your deployments, your stateful sets, whatever, they have your volume claims, and that ties back to a persistent volume. And then the Longhorn volume is kind of what Longhorn uses to manage those. And then also that's how it gets tied back into things like backups and restores. So you can see we have a lot of volumes in there. Specifically for our website, we have a Strappy instance. So we have that volume specific to that. Again, like it's almost 1-to-1 with the persistent volume, but there's just more bolted onto it, I think. And then we have our backups, and you can like create backup groups. So that's kind of what we did. We just created a default backup group, and so I believe any volume that was already in the cluster and any new volume just gets added to it. And then it's the recurring job that kind of shows that. So every day at midnight, we get that backup. We're retaining 7 days worth of backups, or 7 backups. So I do think it is smart enough that if there's no difference, it doesn't like overwrite or like count towards those new backups. And this is all, this is a cron setting, so you can do it as often as you want. And this is what is set up also to go to S3. We just did it through the general settings. I think there is a way to like set that up as a CRD if you're managing everything with Argo and wanted to manage it that way. We probably could do that. And then something else that I'm not totally familiar with is the snapshots. So these, I believe, are the deltas or the diffs, the changes between each backup. And there is a cool way of looking at it if I can find it. So right, like if you have a full backup and then more data comes in, more data comes in, more data comes in. So you have those changes. The backup that's stored up out in S3 only has that initial backup, but Longhorn keeps just locally, I think. I don't think those also get backed up. But those differences, so it can basically start fresh with the backup, and then it knows how to kind of recreate from there. We've only done a clean backup. I don't know exactly how those work, but I think that's the idea behind them.
So we've never restored the ETCD, right? But we have used these backups, and I guess our streams are just a little bit of a conversation, right? So our cluster here is stored at Mr. McCracken's house in his basement, and it's in a house, so there are times when you can have little blips of power. You wake up in the morning and your clock is reset and you're like, huh, that's weird. That happened last week, and we're like, hey, the cluster seems to be down. He's like, oh yeah, I think we had a blip last night. Okay, so that happened, and it gave us an opportunity because and the cluster wasn't destroyed or anything. So once he reset some things, the cluster came back up, and that was fine. But some of the data was gone. So Sam went through the process of actually restoring some of these backups. You want to kind of walk through what that looked like?
Yeah. So you can kind of see specifically for it's kind of poorly named, and that is one thing that I was trying to understand more of, like that relations between the PV/PVC, the volume, and the backups to like name these better, because like I think this is the name of the volume and the backup, but like it says PVC. It's just kind of weird. But you can see this is our, I believe, 7. I didn't count them out. There's only a few of them, so I don't know. But these are our different backups, and we can restore from there.
Look at that.
I did find it.
There's a drop down for restore. And that's what I mean. Like they just kind of designed it. I'm not a storage expert. So coming into this screen and seeing a drop down that either says backup or a drop down that says restore is really cool from my perspective. I'm like, oh my God, this is so easy. Look what we're doing.
Yeah, so it was weird, like getting everything to actually like line up so the deployment was using that restored data, and I know Chris ran into that too. So like that's what all you gotta do is check that, and then that would, I believe, we're gonna restore a Longhorn volume, and then from the Longhorn volume, you can create PVCs. So for now, I'm gonna just name it something different, and I think we'll be able to see this. So we do that, and then go back to volumes, look for something new. So it's created a new volume a few seconds ago. You can see it's not bound yet. And this is like kind of the weird thing, and maybe we were just in a weird situation where all the apps were still there, and the PV and PVC were still there. It's just our data was gone. I still don't exactly know how or why. So yeah, you can see that something new that I just created from that backup is there. It's detached. If we go over and look at PVs in all, give it a sec to catch up, but you can see there's not a something new yet. And so this is kind of where it was weird, right? You click restore and you're like, great, like it did the thing, it restored, but there's that correlation between that volume and then the PVCs. So you can see like there's not a persistent volume called something new yet. And in our case, there already was persistent volumes with that same name. So I ended up just deleting the persistent volumes, like scaling the deployment down, deleting the persistent volume, and then doing what I'll show you here is from that, you can create a PV, PVC, PV name, something new. I don't...
Wait a minute.
Jump in.
So this volume has nothing to do with Kubernetes yet.
It is a Longhorn concept. Yep.
Okay.
And that's where it's like it is in general. I think when you're in Happy Path, it is 1-to-1 with the PV, at least the persistent volume and a Longhorn volume.
Uh-huh.
But in this case, we have a volume, but no persistent volume.
There's probably, I would guess there's a CRD out there that represents something new right now.
Correct. Yeah. These are, each one of those are instances of the Longhorn CRD. So if we went over, so you can see there's no something new, but then if we went to volume, which is short for the whole full package, you can see something new is there. It's detached. So, I mean, it's normal.
Right, because when you said detached, I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, the claim has to attach to the volume, persistent volume, but I'm getting lost in the words here, or I'm not anymore, but there are Longhorn volumes, there are Kubernetes persistent volumes, and Kubernetes persistent volume.
I know, and that was weird and something I kind of had to walk through the other day when I was restoring that data. But it is, it's very easy. You just click on the drop down again, create PV, PVC. It's just, this is the clunkiest part about it, I think, is if you are like, so if we backed up or we restored our etcd, right, and everything gets deployed, there's going to be those PVs and PVCs. So like, I don't know. It seems like this can't be how you're supposed to do it, is then, scale it down, delete the PV, PVC, and then create them again, with the same name that the app is expecting. But we'll click that and we'll watch. So there's not going to be any app that like is using that PVC. So I don't know what exactly the status will do as far as changing, but so it still says attached, but we should now, if we go over to PV, you'll see something new. create it in the default namespace. That's just what I did through that dashboard. And there's even something new, PVC. So that is interesting that there's, yeah, I mean, I guess the PVCs aren't, one-to-one to like the existence of the pods, right? Like, because the persistent volume claim is less ephemeral than the pods and the deployment, right? Obviously, when you update the deployment, you want your data to stay there. But it is just a little weird kind of thinking through it this way, where it's like the volume claim exists and the app, there's no app for this. But there you go. This has the data behind that persistent volume is the data from our backup, which that's your restore, right?
But the pod's just not referencing it, right?
Right, but the pod's not referencing it. It's there. Everything is lined up. So I mean, that's the other option. But again, like the situation where we were in, yeah, I mean, it was just everything was broke, and so I think it was easier to wait and then, or delete it and then name it the same thing that the app is expecting. I don't know, but yes, technically, you could spin up a new version and point to that or whatever. I don't know. It's an option.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but we did get a new follow. Nanak, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And 6 months of pain. Did we summarize 6 months of pain? No, it was like weeks.
I mean, if that actually helped, awesome.
Right.
I love that because this is obviously we don't know a ton about Longhorn. This is just us experimenting with it, and so I mean, there's still a lot to learn. I think we can actually make the restore easier and cleaner, but I think it just goes a long ways to show that we are able to restore from these backups that are stored out in the cloud. So go ahead, Dan. I interrupted you. I apologize.
Yeah, I think that's all right. I think the open question, Sam, that you brought up there is like, okay, we've done restores of individual Longhorn volumes, and then, I won't even use a pejorative word. We got them to work. We've got them to work with our running workloads.
Yep.
And the open question, there should be something, and what is that something that is more of a restore everything back to the way it
without
was.
having to then go back and like jostle your apps around to like
jostle your apps, yeah.
I mean, I see a big button there
up.
that I'm curious about. What's the create disaster recovery volume?
I have no clue.
Like I think that's the thing I like about Longhorn, honestly, is that there's a UI that seems really well designed and it makes you ask questions. Because with Rook, it's all kind of hidden. You almost just have to like read their documentation and know what it can do and what it can't. Whereas with Longhorn, there's this GUI that you can kind of click around in and be like, oh, it does this? I wonder what this does. And you can explore it more interactively.
And I think you should tease apart the difference there between what Longhorn, the product, is doing versus Rook Ceph plus another product that you'd need to handle this backups. This, Rook Ceph is great for setting up, persistence, but then you need a Velero or some other backup solution to do what this thing's trying to do for you for free. It's all baked in, like you said, like it's well packaged. It's thought through the scenario of I have state in my cluster. How do I deal with it? Or here's a way to deal with it, so you're covered. It's like, wow, you didn't have to do much work.
Super low friction too, and like if you're someone that is new to cloud native, like it would definitely be more intimidating, I feel like, to try to set up Rook Ceph and then set up a Velero or whatever.
It's just one more thing you got to be an expert in.
Come here and click like, yes, I want Longhorn, and then it was here.
Right.
Plus some extra stuff,
you get
but
both.
You know, there's
most of the
something.
extra stuff was just because this is running on Raspberry Pis with USB sticks.
Right.
I mean, we're trying to demo like a piece of technology here, but just for the viewers, I mean, come on. This is on Raspberry Pis with USB sticks. How cool is that?
Mm-hmm.
Multi-architecture.
True.
So to finish, I guess now that we've done that, to finish the story of the restore that we did, we've invested in a UPS, an uninterrupted power supply, to prevent little blips like that in the future.
Mm-hmm. And it is weird that like the drives, I don't know, they got corrupted somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say there's a firm pin in. Hey, we don't know what happened there. 'Cause I wonder if we just needed to reboot the ARM nodes or the non-ARM nodes, the AMD nodes, or I don't know. I would say there's a firm I don't know, but
Yeah, and there's
we're gonna put a battery backup in front of the cluster VR, so that if my power goes out at the compound here, we'll be able to run for like, I don't know, an hour. And then Makita thinks I'm gonna get a generator going just for that. That ain't gonna happen. I gotta run my coffee machine first. I'm just kidding. I can barely do that. Anyway.
I mean, it's your internet. The thing, like, I had my power go out for 2 days, like a couple months ago, and I was okay without, TV. I was okay without AC. I was okay without pretty much everything. The only thing I wanted was internet. It's like, give me my internet. So I was actually looking at UPSs too for literally just my modem and router. And they don't actually last like a super long time. So it was kind of going to defeat the purpose because I was out for like 2 full days. And it would obviously only last like a couple hours. But I was thinking about it. So I would run a generator for internet personally. As long
well, so would I. I'm planning on it. I mean, but the reason isn't for the dang pies. They'll be fine. I'm not worried. The backups work great.
Yeah, and this is why the prod instance will be running in a public cloud.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for going over that, Sam. Yeah, we definitely need to do the restore on ETCD. I'm super interested in that. And there's a mystery about this bigger DR button, and maybe it's like a more Velero like snapshotter, where it can kind of teleport everything back without clicking on it. Cool. Go ahead, Mickey.
Oh, well, I mean, we're almost out of time. I do have a hard stop at 5 for the stream. I hope this was helpful. Obviously, we don't have all the answers. We're still exploring the tool, but that's kind of a quick and dirty rundown of backing up etcd and Longhorn and how we can do backups there. And I think earlier in the stream, you might have seen it. I don't know if Sam ran through it when he was going through the backups, but setting up backups to a cloud storage bucket is all GUI driven. So you can just type in your stuff and hit enter or whatever. Super easy. Yeah. And so anyways, any last words from you guys?
That's about it.
It's good to be back on the internet. Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
All right, we will be back next week. Thank you guys again. Miss you all. I love seeing the familiar names. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.